Welcome back to the Information Week News Desk, coming to you live at Interop ITX. I'm Sarah Peters. My next guest will be speaking later today on the next wave of reliability engineering. Staff Site Reliability Engineer for LinkedIn, Michael Kehoe. Michael, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Sarah.
First question, I think, is a pretty obvious one, which is, what is reliability engineering?
So reliability engineering, the way I see it, is helping product and engineering deliver the best possible experience for the end user from an operations perspective. And reliability engineering is basically a specific implementation of DevOps principles, which basically cover breaking down operational silos, accepting failure as something that regularly happens, implementing gradual continuous change, building tools and leveraging that, and then also measuring your systems constantly and creating a feedback loop.
So this is definitely different than your traditional networking engineering, which does not necessarily like the idea of continuous change and responding to it, but which is obviously essential for DevOps.
Yep.
So how do we get that previous role to evolve into a reliability engineer?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, you've seen a number of vendors sort of, and the open source community move more towards a programmable network. So, 10, 15 years ago, everything was completely CLI based, everything was manually, manual interaction with those devices. And slowly over the past decade, we've sort of seen a lean towards creating programmable networks where switches and routers have APIs, and we have things like the Yang and OpenConfig that are, going through IETF processes and are slowly being adopted by the industry. And as we get to have a more programmable network, we get to enable some of the functionality that we get, or some of the opportunities we get out of the reliability space, where we can now apply configuration and test our configuration in a controlled manner before deploying it out in the wild. And we can do that quickly. We can roll back quickly to minimize risk or outages. And the other thing we've also gotten out of this evolution of the switch or router technology is also better telemetry. So, people are still using SNMP, which is a very old protocol, and it's done its job. But we've sort of moved on to the next level of maturity, where we're getting streaming telemetry, and we can get feedback into what's happening within our network with much tighter feedback loops. And so having that continuous delivery, having operability and measurability of the network allows us to go towards the reliability approach towards network engineering.
So it allows you to be a lot more nimble in a whole lot of different ways from what you're telling me.
For sure. So one of the things I'll actually be talking about this afternoon is basically, with a lot of this change, engineers have much greater agility. So they can, instead of being bogged down in operations work like deployment, in manually deploying things on number of switches, one by one, there are systems that can do that. And so instead of the engineer sort of copy-pasting configuration, they can build it, they can get it verified, they can test it, and then another system deploys it, which lets them get on with their day-to-day job instead of just moving that configuration around the network.
So obviously you're doing this at LinkedIn. What kind of a team do you have? How did you go about building it? What are your people like?
So at LinkedIn, for our reliability side, we're basically taking a traditional sysadmin role and looking for people with coding abilities, understanding of how software architectures work, and also who have a little bit of coding skills, and we put that together into the reliability role. So it's a very multifaceted skill role. For network engineering, we are continuously looking towards people who have more coding ability, who can start to build those platforms that enable our network to be more programmable and to build better monitoring systems on our network so we can deliver the best possible user experience for the member.
Now, have you, as you're talking to other organizations out there, do any of them tell you, oh, we couldn't possibly do this? And if so, are there any reasons that they might be skittish about moving away from the traditional way of doing things over to this manner?
So I think reliability engineering is it's a large cultural change, but if you sort of break it down further, it's just an evolution of the sysadmin role. So 10, 15 years ago, sysadmins were doing a lot of the work that, what SREs are doing now, but we've sort of pulled in a few more skills and, solidified what that job title actually looks like. So for reliability engineering, there's a lot of very open forums. We just had SRECon US, and so we heard a lot about what our peers are doing, and we've heard a lot about how to build teams, how to find those people, which it can be difficult. But we found the industry to be very, very open, and a lot of ideas are exchanged regularly between different companies.
Now, it's interesting to me because it sounds like you're training really kind of creating a new workforce and a new role out of people who were not necessarily being groomed into this role, not necessarily out of a traditional engineering career. Am I understanding that correctly?
So I think building off that, SRE is very much about continuous learning. One of the goals I have when I go to work every day is to sort of learn something new. As a network engineer, as a sysadmin, as a software engineer, you never know anything, and generally, the more you know, you realize the less you know.
Yeah, I understand that.
But so, in building this workforce and building our team, we realize that not everyone knows everything, but a lot of the role is also going back to the original DevOps principles, is breaking down operational silos. So if you don't have the answer, you should know someone who does have the answer, and that's how you become an effective site reliability engineer.
Well, you've taught me a lot, Michael, and I'm delighted that you stopped by. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Michael Kehoe. Stick around. More News Desk after this.